Bum, bum. Welcome to the Sacred Service podcast, you guys. I hope life is really, really treating you beautifully and that magic is flowing in your life. I'm Starr and wow, so grateful to be here with you, Tyler. How are you, my co host, Tyler Tanner?
I'm doing good. I'm doing so good. I'm happy to be here with you today, Star, and for everyone watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you hit record, Star, because I was like, it's just got to be one of those things where it just has to happen. Otherwise, we'll just go and go and go and go and
I know, I know. You guys, Tyler and I have been chatting for an hour and a half and not hit record. And it's just crazy how, yeah, it's beautiful. I just love you so much. And I love the depth in which we can go, you know? It's
me
a unique
too.
thing.
And I think that's why, we wanted to get together and do this podcast in the first place, is because there is kind of a depth that happens when we get into that. So today we are going to be getting into a juicy bit of information of psychedelic integration.
We're getting into the juice, baby, the juice.
So I'm very excited to cover that here with you today. And I guess just to finish up on how the heck I'm doing, I'm preparing for a first go around, really, to kind of step into a facilitating type position. So I've been,
Here we go.
really doing everything that I possibly can to show up with my best foot forward. And if I can offer even a smidgen of what I have experienced, with you, Star, and just holding such
Mm.
impeccable space of integrity and safety and magic, that's all that I can ask. So thank you so much for, you know, kind of being a part in all of this magic that's unfolding. And I'm honored. So thank you. That's,
All honor, baby, all honor. It's here we are, here we grow again, right?
here we
So,
go
and I
again.
feel like we've all kind of been going through a growth spurt, we're finally out of the woods, guys. New moon, hey, hey, in Sagittarius, hey, hey, eclipse season behind us. Hallelujah. As Chandra, what Chandra would say? Is it Chandra? No. Shiangela? Oh gosh. Anyway, hallelujah. No,
Hallelujah.
it's so good to be, like in this kind of rebirth space, right? And growing. And it feels like for all of us, that blood moon and eclipse was really big energy, a time to lay low, a time to go inward, a time to look at the shadow side. And it feels like, whew, a rebirth with this new moon. So,
What are
yeah.
you pulling in? What are we birthing? What are you
Well,
birthing?
for me, it's always deeper aspects of love and compassion, and how, for me, it's always, what's the next layer of fear that I not have to let go of? And in order for me to be in that sacred service of love, and, that's always kind of my go-to, is that, how can I be of service to humanity, to this planet, to the collective consciousness, and so I'm always deep listening during the new moons, and new moons are always alchemy time for me. I go into the medicine to start making the tinctures and getting, everything prepared, and it's an alchemy time in the new moon. So I'll be deep in the medicine over the next few days and taking that time to woohoo, put intentions out there, guys.
I
How
love
about
that.
how about you? You got any big intentions for this time?
Oh yeah. In this new moon energy, taking on new adventures, new challenges, new ways of being. And so I'm really calling that in. Something that I've really been calling in is freedom. You know, I am free to express, I am free to show up authentically and genuinely. You know, I am divine expression of love, and I am capable of holding that space. So I'm really in kind of that alchemy of kind of like settling into this new, you know, this new position, this new way of being. And just like, wait, I don't know if we talked about this when we were on here last week, but I, you know, throughout this whole eclipse have really felt like everything, you know, you're saying going inward, let's look inward, let's look at the shadow pieces. And it's like, yeah, I feel like there's no way that we can really get around looking at these shadow pieces right now. Everything is just right, everything is right there, right at the surface, you know,
That's
and
the
it's either
hard part, is like shadow work, guys. It is the unconscious. It is the parts of ourselves that we are unaware of that trigger us, that keep us in dysfunction, that keep us in, old habits and old ways of being. And, you know, so yeah, that's the hard part, is that we're kind of unaware. And so when we go into planetary alignments that are conducive to show us where our triggers are and what's underneath, what's holding that, how can we, shine the light on it, and maybe even pour more love on those aspects of ourselves that are, wanting to remain in the hidden. And so, yeah, that's just so metaphoric and energetic, is that the eclipse is going to show us all those places where, maybe we haven't really seen before, and that can be hard.
for
Yeah,
sure.
so, don't be hard on yourself, just look at what's bubbling up on your heart. Really feel it. Don't push it back down again. Don't push those feelings down. And if you're still, in the release mode, that's okay too. You can have a fire and let it go. That would be just a little candle, whatever this is. Maybe you can't even identify it, but this ick feeling, I'm going to put that on a piece of paper that says ick feeling, and burn it in the fire, and whew, release, release. So because as we are in this new moon, we want to really call in new energies. How do we wish to be in the world? We want our shadows to be seen and loved, and have all of our aspects of ourselves integrated into wholeness, which is perfect for our integration talk today.
Yeah. And you said new moon in Sagittarius. And right when you said that, something that keeps coming back into my mind is a little bit of, you know, it's okay to be a little bit selfish sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to put your needs first, you know,
Right?
man. And I really feel like that was coming through when you were talking about Sagittarius is, you know, at least for me, and kind of what has been coming up in this eclipse energy has been a lot of outside things that are like, hey, Ty, look over here. Hey, Ty, look over here. Look over here. So I really feel like this is now an opportunity in this new moon in Sagittarius, of that fire of letting it go and really putting your needs first. What is it that you need in order to come back to center?
And
So,
maybe even shifting a mindset around that self care is equated with selfishness.
mhm.
Self care is really important. And, maybe even looking at how we do our self care, and what does that even look like? I know for me, I've had to like schedule myself on my calendar. Like I have to literally put down on my calendar, me time, and so that I'm making sure that I am balanced and, taking good care of myself, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that all of that is tapped in. So yeah, we have to find, and I think that it's the Sagittarius is like very good at finding those things um that do nurture our self-care regimens, and we can really break it down into that. How are we nurturing ourselves on the physical level? How are we nurturing ourselves on that emotional level, and how on the spiritual level? And so, I think that the other beautiful thing, Ty, that we have going on here is Jupiter is out of retrograde.
Whoop, whoop.
It's been a long time.
How long do you
I
know
think
the,
it's 2020.
oh,
You guys
okay.
look that up for sure, for sure. But I'm thinking that it's funny how many of us relate everything as to when COVID started. So I think that was when COVID started. I remember thinking,
Wow.
"Oh Lord, we're in the shadows for a while." This is really time for us to sit down and really look at you know, our spiritual beliefs and what's important in our life, and what's really holding us and, in our belief systems. And to have that long in reflection is a long time. So, the fact that it's now turned around and it's kind of stationed here, during this new moon aspect. So it's kind of a nice little thing that we're in of kind of like, whew, okay, maybe we made it through. I had a friend saying, "Yeah, I'm out of the woods." Woohoo! Yeah, it's true. You kind of got to get that sense. We're out of the woods, out of that intensity of that full moon that we were facing. So yeah,
I think also, maybe something that did work in the past, and if it doesn't work now, that's okay. And I think that there's a beautiful opportunity to, step into something that maybe you wanted to try or that has been of interest for you. It's like take that chance, like take yourself to the dinner, take yourself to the art class, try that new routine, try that new practice, and figure out what feels good and what works for you. It feels like a
that's
really,
so true, and I love that. And all of the messages and the downloads and the directives that I've been receiving over the last couple of weeks have all had a sense of it's time to up level, you guys. It's time to step in, like really, what is floating your boat? What do you want to be? And start aligning our frequency with that. What is your magic? What is your gifts? What, let's go. It's like it's time. It's like, okay, we've looked at our shadows. We've looked at, and now it's time to really step in a bigger way. And so, as Ty is saying, what supports you in that? Is it a new class? Is it, stoking your creativity? Is it, what is that that's going to help support you as you're up leveling? And again, this is very much an integration, talk too, because this is all the things that we kind of touch on in integrating and alchemizing. Once we've been in the alchemy as the cocoon, it's like pew, now our wings are open and the butterfly is free. Now we got to take some action plan, and how are we gonna you know um, create our lives? We are the creators. Don't forget that, you guys. Please do not forget this. You are the creator of your reality.
every which way through on every level, even if it seems, like the world is happening to you, there's still a level of responsibility to take in that you are the creator of your reality, so it's
And
like,
even when we get hit with the big things, illnesses and, these kinds of things, is that's about your perception of the situation, isn't it? And so you are the creator of your reality through your perceptions, through what you project out there and what you receive back. So it's deep.
It's
It's
deep.
deep,
Uh,
baby. We getting deep in the Sacred Service podcast,
show
as per
before.
usual. Yeah, as per usual. Hey, so I've been shuffling cards here as we've been
Oh
chit chatting,
yes.
and I got a popper outer, and it is Eagle Spirit, and this comes from one of the decks actually that I made. Cool. Eagle
Lovely.
Spirit. Okay, so just drop into your heart. And I just want to say before I read this that we're just so grateful to have you all here. And, we come into the Sacred Service podcast with our hearts open, and we share from the space of our own experiences and the wisdom that we have gleaned from those experiences. And our opinions and our thoughts that we're sharing, take what resonates, leave the rest behind. We're here in a sacred way with heart, um, and love as our mission. So in that regard, we just open up our sacred space, calling in our guides, calling in whew, our galactic family, thanking Pachamama for holding us. So here's our message, Eagle Spirit. Today, I fly with Eagle Spirit, even amongst the chaos. I rise above with grace and precision. I am clear and conscious. I am an enlightened being. Today, I fly with Eagle Spirit. Hell yeah, we do. That's just it. That was what we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Rising up, right? Rise up into our highest self, our highest consciousness, and that we can rise and fly with spirit.
It
You are the
reminds me.
creator of your reality from that eagle vision. With eagle vision, we are flying in freedom,
Yeah.
as a sovereign being. Yep, because we can see the bigger picture, yet we don't lose any of the details. We're flying with the grace and ease of spirit. We're right at those mountaintops, bringing the messages down into this 3D matrix. And I think that this is what is really important, is that as we are all walking our journey and awakening in our own process and in our own way, is that we are understanding that we are all given a bigger mission at this time, and that is to be the person to bring these messages and this consciousness and this way of being here on earth in this 3D matrix. It's not about keeping our heads in the clouds and being above anybody or anything like that. It's about being able to access at higher levels of consciousness. And what good does it do if we're not grounding it here on earth with each other in tribe, and with love, and anchoring it here, amongst the chaos, as
Yeah.
the card says, not to be spun in the chaos, but know the higher mission of bringing the higher consciousness of love and compassion and kindness, and, moving away from separation, us versus them, and coming into the space of harmony and unity, and, not just tolerating one another, but actually listening, deep listening to one another. Whoo, that was a rant.
But so true. I couldn't have said it better myself. It reminds me of there was a video that I saw one time, and for some reason, this tidbit of the video stayed with me, but it was like 30 lessons that I learned in 30 years. The person had just turned 30 years old. And they were talking about um, they kind of live their life like a little magpie, the bird that flies around and it sees a shiny thing, for its nest, and it flies down. And sometimes, it's a piece of crap. It's like a piece of tin or something like that. And so they're like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna just keep flying, because I'm a magpie. That's what I do. Is I fly around and I just look for shiny stuff. Oh, like another little shiny thing. And sometimes it's a diamond ring or something, or something really nice for the magpie to make its bird nest. But it never gets weighed down or stops flying or stops being a magpie because they found something that they thought was
It's
shiny.
not judging the process as good or
Yeah.
bad. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that doesn't work. Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
Right.
So I love it. I love all of it. Um,
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful lesson for all of us in trying to move, or not trying to, but moving, moving, as Yoda would say. Well, you do not try. um, you know, into the place of non judgment.
mhm. Yeah, releasing the
Not judging our process and just accepting, oh, okay, that didn't work. We don't have to judge it as failure. We don't have to judge, all the things and wrap our get caught up in all the truly mind fuckery of it all, and just
yeah.
like, oh yeah, that didn't work. Okay, cool. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Thank you. Next.
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 Thank you, next.
um,
Oh, I like that affirmation.
right, right. Yeah, and so it's already way, 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 way deep, as it always is here on the Sacred Service. But before we get any deeper and jump into integration, I did bring some rapid fire questions. Since you did them for me last time, I
That
got
was fun. That was fun.
it was fun. Okay, and it's the same sort of deal. You only have a second to answer, and if you don't answer them in a second, you're fired.
Okay.
Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding.
All right,
Let's
here we go. I'm
see.
coming into my heart space.
Okay.
All right. Ready.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
What was your first job?
Cheese. I was a cheese person at a Swiss colony. I sold cheese. I dressed up as a little like Dutch person. It was the funniest thing. I think, yeah.
I love that, and I can see that. That's perfect. Your favorite dessert?
Chocolate mousse.
Ooh, what song makes you want to dance?
Oh, I wanna dance with somebody. I wanna feel the heat with somebody.
Yeah, I want to dance with somebody. I love it.
Oh, it's somebody who loves me.
Yes.
I can't believe I hit that.
What planet are you from?
Venus.
Love. Favorite weather?
Autumn.
Favorite type of music?
Whoo.
One second.
That's tough, yo. That's real tough. I guess I'm gonna have to say Icaros. I mean,
Okay.
medicine songs.
If you could turn into an animal, what animal would you be?
Unicorn. I would totally turn into a unicorn
Your favorite thing to do in the summertime?
in the summertime. Ride my bike. Yeah, totally.
Cool. And last one, what has been your favorite age so far?
Now,
Now.
this age, 60. You guys, I turned 60. This is really a cool time, good time to be alive, and um, just taking my seat in the crone, as the elder. Like, wow, that's a big thing, like, whoo.
Can you believe that it's like already at this? Does it feel like it's happened fast coming to this point in your life?
In some respects, it does, like blink of an eye,
Yeah.
Um, But in other respect, it's like, whoa, this has been what a long, strange trip it's been. True that. I mean, like, I feel like in some degree, and maybe some of us can relate to this, is that it's like big, heavy chapters in your life, Like that's
Yeah.
the chapter where, I was raising my children and I was, shama mama, turning, raising my kids. And that was the chapter that, I was living in Montana. And, so there's like different parts and there's different, segments that are really near and dear. And you hold like big wisdom chapters, and really that have brought me to where I am right now, which is a kind of cool place. I like where I am.
I
Simple
hope
life,
you too.
simple life, just hanging out with tribe and just really living my mission of love. It's pretty simple. I don't, it's not a, yeah, I travel a lot, and which is a beautiful perk of what, I get to do and, study a lot in Peru and, that kind of thing. So I'm a little bit in that realm, but it's even in that, guys, it's just a simple, easy, loving way to
Life.
be.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Star. I love that we
Yay, that was
love
fun. I
question.
loved it. And I hope you guys learned a little bit more about me through rapid fire. Hey, so let's jump into the heart of our topic today. And this is specifically talking a little bit about ayahuasca integration slash plant medicine integration slash integration in general from any big life experience that you may be having. Because I feel like when we talk about an integration process, we're talking about alchemy, an
Mm,
alchemy that happens after you've had a big experience. And so that big experience can be your ayahuasca ceremony or, any big thing that you've just gone through, in your life. That there is a time where you're picking up the pieces and going home and trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, so to speak, and who do I want to be and how do I want to be and what were the messages that I received in this ceremony and how do I make sense of all of this, And so there's a sense of alchemy that happens on the physical level, on the emotional level, and on the spiritual level. And so, in an ayahuasca ceremony, we got to take that pretty serious. And so, I would say seriously, Tyler, that there's lots of weigh-ins on integration and lots of opinions and lots of thought processes. And one of the things that I'd like to kind of cover is from Shipibo perspective, and then how we in the Western world have kind of adopted and adapted and moved forward in sort of a psyche kind of way, adding, psychology to this. And this is kind of some of the things that we look at in how ceremonies morph and change as they are moved out of the jungle in a deep cultural aspect where people who are living and communing in the jungle, their integration process is going to look really, really different than us who have to go back into a fast-paced job and back into relationship and back into technology and all of these things. So it may look different from how Shipibo integrate to how somebody who's having a ceremony in New York City, how they may integrate. And so we have to take into consideration all of the aspects of one's ceremony, and it has to do with the set and setting, as well as how that's going to be, what the set and setting looks like when you leave ceremony.
100%. And gosh, it just makes me think, like, I could not imagine being down in Peru and, going through such a big awakening and then integrating it into like daily life down there. It's such a drastic difference from, the Western world and more of like a city life type situation, but still so important nonetheless, because I feel like something that I hear from people in, I'm just going to say, the psychedelic community in general, is a lot of people have, had these really big experiences, whether on like LSD or psilocybin or something like that, to where it's outside of like a ceremony context and maybe not facilitated by like a shaman or a guide or somebody to kind of work with you as you're having that experience.
Keeping your ass tethered so that when you're blasting out,
Right.
you have a
And
portal to get back through again.
yeah,
And these
and
are truths.
yes. And something that I've heard is people saying, I'm not going to choose to have an experience like that again because I have done, LSD or something like that, like every single month for the last 2 years or something like that. And then it's like, I'm just back in the same life, in the same job, in the same apartment, in the same relationship. Like I'm not gaining anything new from these experiences. And I feel like that is why integration is, for me, in my opinion, like one of the most, if not the most important aspect of working with plant medicine, of working in the psychedelic space.
It's so
um,
true, Ty. And I'll say to people, and even in my vetting, and coming in, if I hear and I get the sense that people are what I call peak hopping, going from experience to experience without that deep integration, that's kind of a red flag for me. Like I want to know, well, like, what's going on here? Are you walking your talk, or are you just surfing the highs, that pink cloud, and are and the integration process is, are you taking the messages that you received and walking your talk, putting it into action plan? And so that part is really, really important. And so, yeah, there is the aspect of people blasting out and not having, the shaman there to anchor them and then help them through that integration process. But, it's so interesting because, like, in Shipibo culture, um, you're in the jungle, like, this is, you're integrating, so the plants are still informing you, and we have to understand that in the integration process, from the moment that you are leaving that ceremony, this plant medicine is still working with you. You're
mhm,
still in your dieta. You're still following the same regimen for, well, it's the integration process is generally, by Shipibo standards and the way that I've been taught, is however many days you've been in the medicine. So if you drank the medicine for 3 days, then your integration process would be 3 days plus two. So, however many days you've been in the medicine plus two. So, that would be a 5-day integration. So, you're still in your integration process. But I would have to say that even though after 5 days you've closed your dieta, this does not mean that the plants are done with you and that you are fully integrated. And that's where I think we get into a little bit of issue. And so, generally, for me, what I love to do is check in. And this is where we have an integration one-on-one call to make sure that your arrows are pointed in the right direction and remind you of, remember what your intention was, remember what your I am statements are, how's that going, what is your action plan, have you been following your action plan, and holding a certain amount of accountability at
Mhm.
that 2-3 week mark period, a certain amount of accountability. Otherwise, you're just, what was it all for?
What was it all for? Because you got to think people are coming to specifically ayahuasca more and more, you know, today now than really we've kind of seen in recent past for things like PTSD and alcoholism and, substance abuse and all sorts of, these disorders
Deep
and ailments
traumas, yeah.
that
I
people
mean,
are.
and to think that it's not going to be work at the tail end. I mean, this is where I think that the Western mindset really has to be broken, and that is, this is another pill that's going to fix you here, you're going to be done. This is no, this is you doing the work, and part of that work is your integration process and actually walking your talk. Now you've gotten these messages, and maybe some of those messages weren't really clear, and you have to, put together what that means. So there's a part of that happens, and then how do we carry it forward for you to be in your highest self? What does that look like, and what do you have to do in order to create that? And some of that can be really hard work.
Oh my God, it is work because so after I left my first ayahuasca ceremony, um, there was a statement, guys, you're integrating back into this world, and it's either, and really to put your best foot forward with this, it is, I guess when you were talking about it, it was more specifically to like discussing the experience of the weekend and kind of what had happened. It's like if you're going to discuss this or what happened or kind of what you went through, it's you need to discuss it with people that are on your vibration or higher, and I really didn't understand that until we left out the door in the car
Until you're
on the
out,
way
right?
back home. And then you know what I mean? We
I
stopped by a
do.
restaurant or we like went in somewhere and it's just, you are just, and it's different for everybody. So I don't want to say if you go and do this that, this is what it's definitely going to be like. But for me, it was like, whoa, like it was just this golden egg of love, that was just kept around me, and it was just carrying me through, those first couple of days that I was kind of integrating back, and I was like, oh shit. And so it really, going through an ayahuasca ceremony is a type of soul metamorphosis. You are not the same
Totally.
person.
And
You are
even
not,
on a physical level, more to metamorphosis. I've seen whole DNA restructuring, like
yeah.
really big, 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 So those are the big things. And as you know, I've had those experiences too, Ty, where like you feel like, well, as you're given the integration talk, like, okay, so, yeah, okay, I get it. Things have changed a little, and then you leave and you come home. I've had times where I've walked in the door and everything looks the same, yet you know that everything is different, you know?
Right. And so that is what this medicine shows me is, we're breaking down these layers. Grandma's working in your system and she's peeling back those layers of fear and conditioning and everything in this life, for you to be as clean and clear as possible so that you, by you meaning me talking to myself, anyone who goes through any sort of big experience, whether it's an ayahuasca ceremony or a divorce or a car wreck or a sickness or an illness, it's like when you come through that out on the other side, what are you doing and what are you choosing to build from this new foundation? And
Right.
that's really what I feel like the spirit of integration is, and probably what makes it the most difficult is because it's all up to you, baby,
Now you got to make the hard choices, right? Now
yeah.
you got to stand on your own 2 feet, and now you got to start reprogramming your mindset that when you get triggered, that all of a sudden, you're coming back home and remembering who you are in this higher vibration. And I mean, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it whatsoever. I mean, like, I've had some of the hardest integrations ever. Like, really, really, really integrations that have shook me to my core, because such massive changes need to be made. And, like, having this bond and this trust with the process has helped me 100% stand in my yeses to myself and yeses to this medicine and yeses to this path. And in that, when you have to say no to parts of your life that you've maybe built yourself around, that these kinds of things, these structures no longer work, these relationships no longer work. I cannot do that. That's a boundary that I cannot do anymore because I'm saying yes to me. These are really hard. That's hard.
Hmm.
So integration can be a real big challenge, and I always give the advice, yes, what Tyler said, your vibration or higher of who you're sharing your personal experience with and your intimate self with, for sure. But also is, don't make any big moves. You cannot quit your job. You cannot get a divorce. You cannot, marry anybody. You can't do anything for the first 2 weeks after you get out. Like, there is such an integration and alchemy process that happens on the physical level, on the emotional level. Like, we're still deep in the medicine for at least a couple of weeks and even longer, depending on how long you've been in the medicine. So, when I first came out of the jungle and have done, subsequent gone in with subsequent dietas, those dietas are longer. I'm going in for a month at a time or 3 months at a time. So my integration process is a month, right? So I've got to really give that and trust that alchemy is challenging. Just walking the walk out of the jungle,
Got it.
right, into a
Yeah.
ketos is like, whoa. And then you get on an airplane and you land into Lima, and that's like, whoa, and then you get into a bigger airport, LAX or, whatever the hub is. It's
Yeah.
like really big. You realize the frequency we're around. We realize we're so sensitive to vibration, to frequency, to light, to sound. Everything has been so quiet and so, you've been in seclusion for a while, and even though in these smaller ceremonies where we're in, in here in the States, it's still to some degree that way. We're in seclusion. We find our little, secret hideout places, and we, we're in, we're in the pocket. And so even that coming out and coming back into whatever city we're in, there is a certain, like, whoa, frequency. And so we want to kind of keep ourselves in an integration. We want to look at, on the physical form, what is our environment?
Hmm.
Keeping ourselves in an environment where we're close to nature as possible, where we're not going right back into technology unless absolutely necessary, that we're really being mindful of the music that we're, what's the frequency that we're taking in, who we are around. So we're looking at, these that's our first layer part of integration, and allowing ourselves to take that time for this very special alchemy to take place. And yeah, things are changing on the physical form. Things are changing still emotionally. You're still rewiring, the synapses is still happening and taking place. And so, you need as much support as you possibly can, which is then where, the Western integration process really comes in and says, oh, Well, guess what? We got breath work, and guess what? We've got somatic therapies that really help support this integration process. And so we don't really have these kinds of support systems in place so much in the jungle. You know, that somatic therapy may look like I'm going to go walk to the end of the to the end of the path for a mile, or go sit with the tree, which maybe is a half a mile down the road, and back again, so the integration processes look real different, and the influences of where we are make a huge difference. And why
Oh,
not go into those
100%.
support systems? Why not utilize that? We know that if we're changing patterns in our brain and in our, psyche and in our physical body, that we're, reprogramming addictions into healthy patterns. Why not bring it into somatic? Why not take it to your lifting? Why not take it to the gym? Why not take it to the cold plunge? Why not? These are just really magnificent support systems that help you to integrate it in the physical aspect, in the emotional, and in the spiritual. What is supporting you?
On a day-to-day process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's sometimes it for me has felt like it's a little bit easier said than done, because when you are fresh out of ceremony, you're fresh out of that experience, like everything is so heightened, and just like you're saying, to the sensitivity, to the light, to the sound, to just this whole world in general, you realize just how much we are like sponges, and we just soak up our environment, especially after coming out of a situation like an ayahuasca ceremony. And so, for example, we had come back after one, and I was living with my grandmother at the time, and bless her whole heart. Uh,
Yay.
bless her whole heart. But I
Love me
come
some
back,
Linda.
we love some Linda, and I come back home, and like the first thing that I see as I walk through the door is CNN, MSNBC, just broadcast, just right on the TV. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so definitely, you know, there
Ladies and
are,
gentlemen, we are going to broadcast fear. Fear, fear, fear.
and so there's just like obviously best practices and things to consider when taking it in place, but like sometimes life doesn't always work like that also, and so there needs to be for me there needed to be a level of acceptance and a level of allowing of shared space, in that sense of like, I can't control what she is going to have, or what she is going to choose to like whatever. But I was just so sensitive coming like right back home. It was like so hard coming right back into that. And so, you know we always want to put our best foot forward with the integrative experience, but I do also want to say that life is just gonna happen, like when you get back, and things are gonna pick up, especially if you have family and kids, and job, and all of that. So it's something might come up and trigger you immediately, like right when you get back home. But that doesn't mean that you have to respond in a way to where you can, take that ding, take that hit, take that, that low route.
100%.
And so what I want to say with that is, in the integration process, it is a process, because when you come back and when you come out of it, at least for me, I felt like, shit, man, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I know what needs to be done,
Ready to take
and
on the world.
ready
Woo!
to take
Let's
on the world.
go.
Exactly. And then something happens, and you're like, fuck. Whether it's an argument or a disagreement, something that you get into that ruffles your feathers or something, whatever it is, and you're like, well, fuck, am I broken now? It's like, did the medicine not work? Did it not? Am I still in this same pattern? And you have to give yourself that grace and ease to take a step forward, and then take 3 steps back, and then take another 2 steps forward, and get pushed back. It's a continuous ebb and flow. And if there's anything in my own integration process and what plant medicine has shown me, is to nurture yourself with the same love and kindness that you would give to your child, that you would give to your best friend, that you would give to a lover. You know, you deserve that same nurturing and self-respect from your own heart. And
Oh,
so when we are in these integrative processes, you know, it's not always going to seem perfect and amazing and great and wonderful, but we allow it all the same because it is all perfect. It is all necessary. Like we are all here, you know, to enjoy the highs and to, you know, transform through the lows. So I just wanted to add that to the integration process.
I think that that's a really good perspective, and I think that along with that is that we can look that at this idea that we don't have to figure it out.
Hmm.
Okay. In fact, the more that we can dismantle the control panel and do less figuring out and more feeling, then we can look back. I mean, like, I've had situations where I've not understood the integration process or what has happened or why things went down in the integration process, why relationships ended, other than I trusted the process. But given some width and breadth and distance, you can look back and you can go, holy guacamole. So, yep, I get it. That's why that happened. And, so we can always drop into trusting the process and trusting the messages that you've received, trusting your intuition, trusting yourself. You don't have to hear from a guru what your what your process was or what your experience meant from you. You don't need anybody else to tell you what your experience was. You know. And this is, one of the things that I think that is really important in the facilitator role, is to help you to kind of listen and work through and give you some tools to maybe dig a little bit deeper. But don't let anybody tell you what your experience means to you. And I think that's what's really important. You putting those pieces together. And I think one of the big things that we have to look at is, in relation to the purge, is that in the ceremony, we've let go of a lot of things. Some of those things on the physical level, some of those things emotional, some of that trauma, some of that drama, some of those, shame, guilt, all of the usual suspects and villains, right? um, but when we talk about the deep work that can happen in the DNA, is that some of those things we've been packing around our entire life. And so just because it didn't serve our highest good and we let it go doesn't mean that there's not a sense of grief, loss, a feeling of emptiness that can come in, and you can't even put your finger on what it is. Like, what is it? I just want to reach outside of myself to fill this void, or that there's a sense of void. And this is where I think it's really important for us to be aware of that emptiness, and that from that emptiness we have now a vessel to give birth to whatever creation we want. And remember, we said at the beginning of the Sacred Service podcast of how we create our reality. Well, we can't, yeah, you can create your reality from the same old shit that's in your vessel that wasn't working, but that's kind of like insanity, repeating the
Hmm.
same thing over and over again. But now, you've come to a ceremony and you've had this incredible purge. You've let so much go and you've got this empty vessel. This is where, you know, um, you can really recognize it and bring the awareness. Oh, this is emptiness. This is me feeling like I need to fill a certain void up. And this is where our sneaky little addictions can come back in. This is where the old habits can sneak back in. And this is where, we can, oh, I'm just going to reach outside for that glass of wine or that joint or that whatever the thing is, right? That we maybe want to fill that void up. And so I think just bringing the awareness that this could be a possibility during integration, and just be aware of it, and just like, wow, how, okay, so it's like tending a garden. What seeds do I want to plant? How do I want to nurture? And this is where the integration plan of action really comes in handy. And I feel like, one of the things that's really important before you even leave your ceremony, and if this is not brought up by your facilitators, just take this little nugget of wisdom now, and that is, write yourself up an integration plan of action. What should I be, or can I be doing that supports my integration and my ongoingness on the physical, on the emotional, on the spiritual. And you can get real clear as far as bulleting that out and making sure that you are going back to do that. And this is where I think the word integrity comes in, Ty. Integrity is so important in our integration process, because now we have to be in right relationship with the plant medicine. We have to walk our talk. We've got to make those moves. We've got to serve in humanity and ourselves and the collective consciousness and earth in a higher and more blessed way. This is where now we're in right relationship. We've gotten this message. We've gotten this beautiful ceremony. How are we carrying the, boots on the ground, as Grandma would say to me over and over again? We need boots on the ground. We need people out there, in the army of love. Let's go. So it's like, if you're not coming out and doing your work to really integrate this, then you're out of right relationship.
100%. And what I want to maybe offer as advice to someone, because that can feel like a very daunting, am I doing it right? Am I integrating right type of situation. I felt that, in my own life. And if there's something that I could offer as far as somebody to take away, just something very simple that you can do, that you can keep yourself accountable for after, when you are in your integration process, is naming 5 things that you are grateful for before your feet hit the ground every single morning, and giving yourself 3 I am statements to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself every single morning. And now, I did not realize, and still, am learning more and more and more every day. I am just barely now coming up on my year mark. And actually, no, next February, it'll be a year of my gratitude, saying my gratitude statements in the morning and saying my I am statements every single morning. And coming up on just a year later, I feel like I am barely now at this point starting to really understand the impact that those practices have had on my life over the last year, 6-7 months. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about planting seeds and choosing and responding on, how do I want to be here? How do I want to show up? Y'all, we live in a technological instant gratification right now. I want it right now. But when, Starr was talking about, we're planting seeds, it's like tending a garden. There is a level of germination and gestation that has, and the alchemy that has to happen in order for these new sprouts and these new, ways of being to flourish. And so I want to just say, from my own experience, is, be patient with yourself and give yourself that time. We're in it for, this isn't like a 300-yard dash. We're in it for the long haul. We're taking it slow and steady all the way to the end, you know?
100%. I think the biggest thing is that, we have to be gut wrenching honest with ourselves during the alchemy, the alchemy that happens. And we have to um, just be authentically truthful with ourselves and what it is that we really need at this time that supports, and being in that right relationship. And you know I think that this is part of the bigger mission for these plant medicines and what they have for us, in that the bigger mission is, like I say, boots on the ground. That how are not only are you in right relationship with the messages that you've got and right relationship with yourself, but how are you moving it forward in your actionary plan to be that ripple effect on this earth. And that we have a responsibility to raise the consciousness here on this planet. And that if you are going to go in and do this beautiful work for yourself and shift so deeply out of these traumas and dramas, and be able to be not only a functioning, incredibly beautiful being, but one who now gives back. And I think that, this is the bigger message of these plant spirits, and why we're seeing this renaissance, this surge. The plant medicines wanting to come out of the jungle, the plant medicines wanting to go into communities, the plant medicines really seeing that we need a bigger conscious change on the planet right here, right now. And we all see it, we all know. It's kind of a sense of urgency that we all kind of understand. And
Mm.
so, not colluding with the fear and not colluding with, all of the things, but really being the ripple effect in this higher consciousness. And so, I think that this is really part of the integration, the integrity piece, the truthfulness piece, that we have to be gut wrenching honest with ourselves and stepping into our yeses in the world and being of that sacred service. It's when we think about integration, we think about a wholeness and a completeness, that where many of us have reclaimed parts of our soul from across timelines. And many of us have not only reclaimed all of these beautiful gifts, and communed with parts of ourselves, but that we've been able to do deeper DNA work, and and free our ancestors, and move these gifts forward. Now it's our time to move the gifts forward. And so, creating that action plan, that we're moving it forward, and that we're being a part of this greater awakening and seeding a new earth. This is the bigger picture, I think, of integration. So there's lots of many, little facets of integration, from the time that like, oh wow, okay, I'm out of the jungle, lights, camera, action, let's go, to the bigger pictures of how our actions really ripple out there, and being mindful of what those actions are, not only for our own self and our own walk, but for our community, for our family, for a greater humanity.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ancestors to effect change, you know? And what an
Yes.
honor. What
Yes,
an
yes, yes. And integration can be a challenge. I've, like I said, I've had some really, 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 really hard ones. First out and of the jungle. Um, my first integration after being with my mentor for 3 months was undoubtedly one of the most challenging. ever, 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 ever. And I shook my head, my body shook. I making choices, making decisions based solely on what I was hearing from the plant teachers and what spirit was guiding me, and it was hard. And so, it's not to say that these integration processes cannot be challenging, but they're also challenging because you have to, stand in your truth. You have to say yes to yourself, maybe for the first time ever.
And sometimes that yes to yourself looks like a no to somebody else, and maybe you've never said that in your life. You've never told anyone no. You didn't know
Right,
how.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my personal story without getting into the nitty gritties, because I'm always so mindful of all of that, and I feel like, um, yeah, you just know that we look back and we see, and and we go, oh, okay, I trusted the process, and I understand now why things went down the way that they did. And we know that it's for the highest good for everybody involved, and so, yeah, those sometimes those yeses to self means no to a lot of things. No to that glass of wine, no to that party, no to maybe even that group of friends, that just has a different priority now, and your priorities have shifted. And so, there are times that, people have asked me, they see a certain part of what I do and the gifts that are shine through, and they say, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm like, be careful what you wish for. Because it can be a lonely path, it can be a tiring path, it can be a path that is challenging. You're navigating the shadow world, and so therefore all of our shadows as a facilitator really need to be, anytime that I'm triggered, man, you bet I got to go in there, because if I'm holding space for people, I can't be projecting my shit onto a group, so it's challenging in its own ways.
Absolutely. I think I think when it comes to that, and the people having the desire of, ooh, I want to do what you do. I want to be as free as you are. I want to be as all of that is, where kind of projecting the idea of the grass is greener on the other side. And it's like, no, like you're project this idea or this projection of what you think that you want from me is within you and within your ability to create for yourself.
Oh, exactly. And I am you and you are me and we are all together. And this path of holding space is a really big place, and it doesn't mean that, there's any kind of hierarchy. As in shamanism, we all sit in the same circle and we all respect everybody's place in the circle. So it's not a hierarchy or whatever, in that sense. It is, but if you're holding space, you want to have somebody that is going to walk through those trenches with you, that has an idea of how to walk through the shadows and has been through their own shadows. And, you know, yeah.
Reminds me of that Maestro song, let the darkness teach you your own name, so in the shadows you can stand and say, I am God and you are God and we are God, and all of that. And it's just juicy and yummy and lovely. And, thank you, Starr, for walking your path. I'm
Mm.
so grateful that our paths have crossed, and everything that you have taught me, and the tools that uh, I have been given to do my own work. I'm so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I just kind of want to end our podcast with a little bit of heart medicine and love and prayer for our Indigenous peoples as we enter into this time of Thanksgiving and Indigenous Honoring Day, that we give some reflection to our Native peoples. And my heart and prayers go out to all of the Indigenous women who have been kidnapped and really not even being addressed. And, I just feel like there are so many ways in which we can lend our support to our brothers and sisters that maybe don't include a gluttonous day, a day of gluttony. So, as maybe we enter into this holiday time, is that you open your heart and give prayer to our Indigenous families.
Prayers up.
Prayers up, prayers up, and that we give thanks, that we spend some time giving thanks to Pachamama, thanks to this beautiful, beautiful Mama Gaia that we get to inhabit. And maybe even if you have an opportunity over the next couple of days to offer some prayers to the waters around you and give thanks for the blessings. Sing a song, bring some tobacco, go out and visit a tree, give thanks. Give thanks to the people that are close to you, and, hug your tribe real tight and just be in that place of gratitude and appreciation for all the gifts that we have. You know, it's a very special time. And I thank you, Tyler. Thank you for being in my life, and I love you so. Mwah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Star. Thank you so much for tuning in and being open and willing to receive. And it's all love. We'll see you next time.
Yay. Love you guys. Have a beautiful holiday. Giving thanks for you all.